People who are here as lawful permanent residents, typically that's referred to as people with a green card. In order for them to be eligible for citizenship, they have to be in that legal permanent resident status for 5 years. And anytime after that 5 years, they can apply for citizenship. In order to be granted citizenship, they have to fill out a very complete application, and they need to pass two tests. They have to pass a test that demonstrates their knowledge of the English language and English speaking ability, and they have to pass a civics test, which is a test that basically covers American history and the basics of U.S. government. It's been tried many times on natural-born citizens, and frankly, those who apply for citizenship and are granted citizenship generally pass that test at much higher rates than do natural-born citizens. So when they are able then to complete those requirements, they become U.S. citizens, and that gives them eligibility to vote in the United States. It gives them eligibility to use the immigration laws to bring relatives to the United States. And it does make them eligible for the full range of social services benefits that any natural-born American citizen would be eligible for. The different types falls into two categories. There are people who come legally who are permanent immigrants, and there are people who come legally under temporary visas. So we have temporary visas and permanent visas, and it's those permanent visas that bring with it generally eligibility for citizenship. People who come on temporary visas are typically not eligible for citizenship unless they ultimately find a way to become eligible for permanent immigration. By and large, yes, non-citizens are protected by the Constitution, and they're protected from the standpoint of due process, free speech, freedom of religion. They can have legal representation by lawyers if they are contesting their immigration status, but they are not eligible to have government paid lawyers. There's less eligibility for non-citizens for social services of various kinds as compared with citizens. And those non-citizens who are here, who are legally here and eligible to work, do pay taxes, and they do pay Social Security. And then the ultimate difference is that non-citizens are not eligible to vote in the United States. It cannot revoke citizenship for those born in the United States. If you're a naturalized citizen, it's very rare. But if you severely misrepresented your background and evidence of that becomes available, that's a basis for denaturalizing. It's also the case that if you have committed serious crimes, treason could also be a cause for denaturalizing. Another cause for denaturalizing that has happened over the years goes back to the Second World War, the Holocaust, people that were persecutors, sometimes people that fled countries where it later turns out to be the case that they had persecuted others. That sometimes becomes a cause for denaturalization. So the short answer is denaturalization happens. It's rare. It's only under circumstances of very serious issues, and it has to be done in federal district courts. Government can't just decide to denaturalize people. It has to bring evidence before a district court, and a district court is required to go through a full trial with the government presenting its evidence for why it is asking for denaturalization. There are several. First of all, people who are applying for citizenship pay a fee for their application to be adjudicated, and the fee is quite high. It is somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 to $500 in addition to the payment for fingerprints and the criminal background to be vetted. So most people who are eligible to be citizens and want to become citizens will find a way to come up with the money for that fee, but the fee can be a barrier. Another barrier are the tests. People are often frightened of particularly the English language test and of passing the civics test. And then finally, I would say that a barrier to citizenship is just the simple fact that many people feel torn about the feeling that they are detaching themselves from the country of their birth and the culture and the language and the customs that they grew up with. Now, it is true that today more and more people have dual citizenship, can be a citizen of the United States and can retain citizenship in another country. But there's an emotional tie that people who are immigrants most always maintain with their origin country, and sometimes that is a struggle. Ultimately, people who want to become U.S. citizens because of the desire to have a better chance of their relatives immigrating to the United States, or because they want to vote, or because they can't go back to their country. I mean, people who come as refugees or people who come from countries that are torn by violence and poverty ultimately often decide their future is in the United States and then decide to become citizens. So, what we find is that even though people are eligible for citizenship after being in the country for 5 years, typically people who apply for citizenship will have been in the country longer than 5 years.